best as I can.
No crying.
So, Yachi da, that's cheers in Welsh for those of you who did not know. I still wonder to this day, did Grandad actually speak Welsh? I don't think any of us actually did we?
No.
Sandra, Nan's sister, for those of you who didn't know, was another who found his Welsh side really intriguing, and even admits, I still don't know if he actually spoke Welsh, but he would used to come up to me and say a Welsh railway station, and that was enough to keep me convinced.
Go.
So I just want to say to everyone, thank you for coming today. It was on quite short notice, but I truly hope that we can give your husband, your father, and our granddad a truly great send-off. I also want to thank you for the stories you sent me. They capture everything Grandad loved, whether that be the great outdoors, football, or his family, but most of all it highlighted his cheeky, caring and loving nature. I think we can all agree that there was nothing Grandad enjoyed more than walking in the great outdoors. Christmas presents were always easiest because all he needed was a new pair of socks or shoes, and that did the trick every year. Right from a young age, Grandad looked after Shannon and I for the weekend. We would head straight out for the nearest farm to feed the horses apples and carrots. Shannon and I will never forget, we once went to feed some goats and Grandad turned away and one suddenly bit him on the bum. He squealed in shock and had me and Shannon in stitches for the rest of the day. After a day of fun-filled activities, we would finally start to crash, and this is when Grandad would take his trusty black comb from his top pocket and comb our hair until we fell asleep. On the topic of the great outdoors, it'd be criminal not to mention one of Grandad's favourite hobbies, gardening. I think it's fair to say Grandad knew the way around a garden more than anyone here. The story from Gary and Donna sums this up perfectly. When they first moved to their house 10 years ago, their garden was a blank canvas. Grandad had made the trip to view the house, and before anyone had said a word, his hands were twitching to get started. After a quick cuppa, they made their way straight to the garden centre on Grandad's request. He couldn't bear to see a garden with no shrubs. At the garden centre, he was in his element. He was telling Gary and Donna which plants to buy and what would grow the tallest. Little did they know, the small twig that Grandad said to plant would eventually grow into a massive tree. Now renamed the Ivor tree, it stands tall in his memory. So right up to the latest stages of dementia, there was one thing that you could always guarantee. Grandad would be up for a stroll. It's quite fitting really that Glenn's last memory is one of walking. Shannon, Glenn and Grandad were walking through Pitfall Park with ice creams when suddenly a dog took the ice cream right out of Grandad's hand. All Grandad could do was point and laugh as he watched this dog demolish the rest of his ice cream. One recurring theme that all you guys mentioned was footy. I think it's fair to say that we forget how much that Grandad actually loved football. Carl always remembers Grandad would call the house phone when mobiles did not exist and try to guess which one of the boys had answered, and he never got it right. Sam also recalls these Grandad phone calls to chat about his beloved Luton Town and also give Sam some stick on Chelsea's recent form, pre-Abramovich days. When I was young and I was trying to get into football myself, I would get so confused on which player was which. This was because Grandad would have the TV volume turned all the way down whilst we were watching Champions League on a Tuesday night, and he'd have the radio volume turned all the way up. When I asked why he did this, he said he needs to know the score of every single match and not just one. When I moved to America, Grandad would head to the post office to send me the weekly newspaper clippings of how Man United had done. I'm still not quite sure he grasped the concept of the internet. But of all Grandad's hobbies and traits, I think we can all agree that the best was his loving, caring and humorous nature. Grandad was the real-life Peter Pan, the big kid that never wanted to grow up.
Well done. Keep going.
He cherished his time with his wife, children and grandchildren more than anything. Margaret, another of Nan's sisters, sums up his personality perfectly. Her memories of Ivor are from the days in Luton when Ron and Ivor would hang out together. They loved seeing him because he was never serious, always made them laugh, and Margaret only ever remembers him with a smile on his face. Margaret, even though in Australia, says she will be raising a glass today to a devoted husband, a caring father and a great-grandfather. Every morning he would pick me and Shannon up for school, smashing down on his horn at 7:30 a.m. to let every neighbour in Battledown know he had arrived for the school run. Each morning at 7:30, so each morning there would be a chocolate bar on mine and Shannon's seat. This is what, as every day when we went to school, there was two roads that run parallel to one another. Every day he would race the car that went the opposite way to us. He'd smash on his steering wheel and wiggle his seat as he shouted, "Go, go, go!" I actually did feel unsafe in those car rides sometimes. It's not often when you pass your driving test that you actually feel bad. I knew once I'd passed my test, I'd taken away Grandad's favourite ever job. Grandad always wanted to make us laugh. One Halloween, Shannon and I trick-or-treated on Nan and Grandad's door in Tewkesbury. They didn't know it was us, gave us some sweets, and when we took our masks off, we said, "Surprise!" As Shannon and I in Nan and Grandad's house started to chomp down on our sweets, little did we know that Grandad had snuck out the back door, crept round the front, and knocked on the door. When we answered the door, Grandad was standing there shouting, "Trick or treat!" To which me and Shannon could not contain our laughter. And who can forget how he always wanted a smoking partner? As he rolled up his ciggy, I think all of us grandkids can remember him rolling up the paper for us too. With nothing in it, of course, but can you just imagine how frowned upon this would be today? This, of course, was only until Glenn finally came of age to actually smoke, and then he was pulling Glenn round the corner for a quick ciggy and a chat.
Yeah. Come on, Glenn, I've got a mate.
One of my mum's earliest memories was when she got stuck at work at only 18 years of age due to snow. Rather than walk all the way home on her own, he made the 30-minute walk to my mum's work and then told her to follow in his footsteps all the way home. It actually reminds me of when I went to my first ever house party. At 4 a.m. I was absolutely done. I wanted to go to sleep, but the party was continuing. I text Grandad saying, "When you wake up and see this message, please can you get me and take me home?" Thinking he'd wake up around 6 a.m. and that would be when I got home. Anyway, 15 minutes later at 4:15 a.m. I heard the famous Grandad horn to beep to let me know he was outside. A lot of people always believe that when a person has dementia they forget their family. I take comfort from the fact that Grandad still recognises his wife, children and grandchildren right to the end. When Gary last went to see Grandad in the hospital, he pointed at the TV. Knowing full well Gary loved cowboy films, he said, "Cowboys," even though Bargain Hunt was on the TV. Even up until his last few weeks, he would still sit there looking lovingly into Nan's eyes, taking peace from the fact that his soulmate was by his side. So can we please get one more Yaki Da for the best husband, father and Grandad ever known? Yaki Da!
Yaki Da.
Cheers guys.
Well done, mate.
Well done, Luke. Yeah, well done.